Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Joseph Wu. He is Taiwan's foreign minister. He joins us from Taipei. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Wu.
You are absolutely welcome.
Your president, Tsai Ing-wen, warned in her New Year address China to renounce, I quote her, military adventurism. How serious is the military threat from China against Taiwan?
I should say that it is very serious. If you look at the military preparation on the Chinese side, they have modernized their military hardwares and their training and also their services in the last few years. And if you look at the level of their military exercises around Taiwan, either in the air or on the surface, or their missile capabilities, it's been improving tremendously in the last few years. They made a lot of investment in it, and they also openly talk about invading Taiwan. So this is a situation we see. If you look at last year alone, there are more than 900 sorties by the Chinese military aircraft, almost 1,000. And you can see that it is very intimidating, and to the Taiwanese people, it's very threatening.
Right. But do you really think China is preparing an invasion or a military strike, or is this merely talk, intimidation, as you just said?
This is a very good question. A lot of people are saying that China may attack Taiwan within 2 years, within 6 years, within 10 years. But no matter how many years China is going to strike at Taiwan, what we see is that China is trying to get itself ready. And what we see is that China is talking about their military actions against Taiwan. And it's being talked about at all levels, beginning from the very top level to their military leaders, and it's also by their civilian leaders. So the situation is not good for us. But under this kinds of situation, we just have to be prepared. Whether they are going to attack Taiwan next year or 2 years or in 10 years, we have to get ready. And in this process, we are trying to get ourselves prepared for a possible military actions by the Chinese side, whether it is an all-out invasion or a small skirmishment with our military. And we are absolutely determined to defend ourselves, and we are also making investment in our self-defense. We are trying to prepare for asymmetric warfare. We're trying to deter hybrid warfare from the Chinese side. So this is what we try to do. Well, we try to be prepared for a possible military strike by the Chinese.
Right, but clearly there's a military imbalance between you and the Chinese military. So obviously this is when the U.S. essentially comes into the equation. The U.S. has said repeatedly it is committed to defend Taiwan. The Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned a month ago that any move by China to invade Taiwan would have, I quote him, terrible consequences. But you must know that the U.S. will probably not go to war against China if it attacks Taiwan. Do you think the U.S. would really go to war with China to defend you?
Well, this is a question not for me to answer.
But this is crucial for you to know.
I know, but it is a question for the United States to consider whether Taiwan is valuable enough for them to intervene. But we have to prepare ourselves. We have to take the defense of Taiwan into our own hands. We have the responsibility of defending ourselves. What we are asking for from the United States is that it continue to live up to its commitment under the Taiwan Relations Act. And under the Taiwan Relations Act, the United States is committed to provide sufficient amount of defensive articles for Taiwan and also helped us in the forces training, in thinking about how Taiwan can be prepared. And I can tell you in a very honest way, the United States has been working very hard in this regard. We have been acquiring advanced weaponry from the United States, and we are also conducting military discussions with each other for Taiwan to be able to defend itself. In the last few years, what I see is that the level of cooperation in between Taiwan and the United States have been increasing, either in the area of information exchange or providing Taiwan with advanced weapons, or help us train our soldiers, or guide us in our reserve forces modernization. So these are all what we need. And I can tell you in a very frank way, we understand that defending Taiwan is our own responsibility, and we are absolutely determined to defend ourselves.
But if there is an attack, would you expect U.S. troops stationed in Japan, for instance, to intervene? Is that the plan? Is this what's being discussed?
What we have been discussing with the United States, as I said a little bit earlier, is to provide Taiwan with sufficient amount of defensive articles, and also to help us train our soldiers so that Taiwan is able to defend itself. We understand very well there's no other country that has the responsibility to defend Taiwan. It's our own responsibility to defend ourselves.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping vowed that China would rule Taiwan, if it happens, under a one country, two system model. Do you trust that would be the case, of course, in the light of what we just saw happening in Hong Kong?
No, we cannot trust the Chinese when they say they promised something to Taiwan. They just say that if Taiwan unifies with China under the one country, two system model, we will get extra pay in the course of unification. But look at what they did to some of our properties in another country that has just severed ties with Taiwan. They helped that country to take over our properties. So the Chinese are not trustworthy. Nicaragua, yes. And if you look at the situation in Hong Kong, it's all very clear that one country, two system model to China. It's just one country, not two systems. The Chinese government promised Hong Kong that it's not going to change. It's a political system within 50 years, beginning from 1997. But look at what happened last year and this year. The freedom is gone. Hong Kong used to be very proud of itself for the openness and freedom, but now it's all gone. All the opposition or democracy advocates, freedom advocates were either taken into jail or disqualified from their political system. So in Hong Kong right now, it's just one system. It's the Chinese authoritarian system. And of course, Taiwan does not want that. Taiwan is a democracy, it's a very proud democracy. People love the way it is right now. We will defend ourselves and we will defend our democratic way of life.
But, Mr. Minister, you must have noticed that with all that's unfolding in Hong Kong, including nowadays, the West has condemned but has done nothing. I mean, this sets a precedent, maybe for Taiwan. The West may say, oh, we condemn it, but in the end, look what's happening in Hong Kong. The Chinese have done exactly what they said they would without much protest.
Well, Hong Kong's situation is very different from Taiwan. If you look at Hong Kong, at the time of the turnover, it was turned over to China with its sovereignty. So the administrative chief was selected by the Chinese side, and the Chinese has its military inside Hong Kong already. So Hong Kong does not have the kinds of sovereignty that Taiwan currently enjoys. If you look at Taiwan right now, we have our own president, which is elected publicly and democratically. We also have our parliament, we have our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we also have our own Ministry of National Defense. And our military is capable of defending ourselves. So this is very different from Hong Kong. When the Chinese government decides that they would impose national security law on Hong Kong, there's no way the Hong Kong people can say no. But if you look at Taiwan, the Chinese does not have jurisdiction over Taiwan, and therefore the Chinese won't be able to do anything like what it is doing to Hong Kong. And after Hong Kong, I think there's awakening in the international community. If you look at all the high-level discussions among the world leaders, or all sets of 2+2s by the foreign minister and defense ministers, there are already more than 20 times in the course of last year that the importance of peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait have been stressed again and again and again. And I think there's an awakening of the international community that Taiwan's status quo must be preserved.
Right. Mr. Minister, a few weeks ago, Taiwan opened its first de facto embassy, if I may use that word, inside the European Union in Lithuania. The office uses the name Taiwan instead of the usual name, which is Taipei. As a result, China downgraded its diplomatic ties with Lithuania. You decided to provide some economic help. My question is simple. Do you hope that other European countries will follow suit, or maybe even the United States, your closest ally, in changing that name very symbolically?
We will keep that door open, but we have not putting it as our priority right now. Right now, we will try to safeguard our relationship with Lithuania. Many people have discussed about the name, the Taiwanese Representative Office in Lithuania, whether that is a cause for the provocation against China, and that will bring the retaliation by the Chinese against Lithuania. But if you look at the situation around the world, you call us Taiwan. The United States has an institution, a de facto embassy in Taiwan. It's called American Institute in Taiwan. The EU calls Taiwan, Taiwan. European countries call Taiwan, Taiwan. And therefore, for us to call ourselves either abroad or in Taiwan as Taiwan is nothing but just to describe the reality. And it is the Chinese that is so provocative and offensive in trying to change Taiwan's national title from Taiwan or the Republic of China into something else. Our participation in the major international organizations have been described by the Chinese as Taiwan province of China or Taiwan China, which is very offensive to the Taiwanese people because we are not under Chinese jurisdiction. And therefore, we would hope that the United States or major European countries would understand that calling Taiwan or for Taiwan to call itself Taiwan or for the Taiwanese to call themselves Taiwanese is not provocative. What is provocative is for the Chinese to change our titles into something else.
Joseph Wu, I want to thank you very much for appearing on the France 24 interview from Taipei, and I want to thank you all for watching it here on France 24. Stay tuned for more news.